Well, hello, parents, and welcome back to our series called The One Thing. I'm Amy Hayes, your host and the founder of Graceful Parenting. And in this series, we're talking about the one thing that every child craves and can only get from their parents, and that is parental approval. And I want to show you in the scriptures how God always approves of us in spite of our behavior. And we're going to look at Moses first as an example. You know, Moses had killed an Egyptian, and he fled to the mountains out of fear of being prosecuted for this crime. And he was in the mountains for 40 years. He found a wife, started a family, he was shepherding sheep. But God came to him in the burning bush because Moses wasn't acting like what God created him to be, right? So his behavior wasn't lining up with God's purpose for him. But God never addressed the behavior, either the murder of the Egyptian or the fact that Moses was shepherding sheep when he was called to be the deliverer of Egypt. No, God came and he looked past that behavior and he approved of Moses' identity, who he really was, what God created him to be. And he speaks to him and he says, you know what? You're better than this. And he says, I want you to go to Pharaoh. And so he instead of condemning Moses for his bad behavior, which God knows, here's the thing, when we show disapproval, that's what we're doing. We're showing condemnation because we're addressing something that's happened in the past. It's already happened. We're saying you did it. It was wrong. You're guilty. Well, that doesn't bring anything but shame into a person's life. And it causes them to withdraw, not to be better. But God, what he does is he speaks to our true identity, which is where our value and worth lies. And our true identity never changes. We were each made for a unique identity and purpose and destiny that nobody else on the planet can fulfill. So God addresses us through that because that never changes. It may be dormant. It may not be operating in our life. We may be acting completely opposite from our true identity. And that's why God comes and he approves of our identity because he knows that when we know who we are, that our behavior will line up. So he uses approval of who we are to line up our behavior with that. And so he does this all through scripture with Moses. You see it with Abraham, with Jacob and Joseph and Gideon. And in the New Testament, you see it with Peter and with Saul, who was murdering Christians. He was trying to annihilate the church. Well, God came and he didn't chastise Paul for, murdering all these people. I mean, we would think that was a serious crime. He should be punished for that. But God doesn't do that. No, he just speaks to Paul's true identity. And it's interesting because both Moses and Paul both thought they were serving God and they were acting in their true identity. Like it tells us in Acts that Moses knew when he killed that Egyptian, he thought he was helping deliver his people from the oppression of the Egyptians, but he was just going about it in the wrong way. And Paul, the same thing, he thought he was killing these people who were diluting the true faith of Judaism, right? But so God just came and redirected their behavior by establishing their true identity and what that looked like. So as parents, we have to learn to look past our children's behavior and see the truth of who they are, who God created them to be. And we know that each and every one of our children have a unique purpose and identity and destiny that nobody else can fulfill. So when we can see that in our children and approve of that in spite of their behavior, that's when we're parenting like God. That's when we're doing what God does for us. He looks past our behavior and establishes that true identity because he knows that our behavior flows from our identity. The scripture tells us, as we believe in our heart, so are we. So whatever you think of yourself deep down, that's what you're going to behave like. And so as we do that, what we're doing is we're empowering our children to be who they are in spite of their behavior. And have no fear. Behavior will line up very quickly when your child knows who he is. And this isn't something that you wait till later to do. No, actually, God's given us a window of opportunity from the age 0 to 3. It's very important that parents understand this in those early years because that's when you're establishing your child's identity, whether you know it or not. And when we show disapproval, we're establishing an identity in our children that's based on their behavior. And it's very devastating because then they see their value and worth based on how good they can be, not who they are. So it creates that works-based mentality. Like if I'm good, then I have value. If I'm bad, I don't. It's very, very dangerous. And it's the way that we've been parenting in the church for many decades or centuries. And until we shift this, we're not going to see the church walk in her full power on the earth. And that's, I believe, why the church is weak. is that we don't understand who we are. We're not operating in our true identity. Most Christians are living from that works-based mentality, thinking that God approves of them when they're good and disapproves when they're bad. It's all behavior focused. So I want you guys to understand that when you approve of your child's true identity, you're actually establishing that identity. And their true identity is just like Christ, because we were all created in God's image. And when God created us, he said, it is very good. So we have to get back to establishing that identity, which is another thread in the fabric of parenting. You know, it's difficult to talk about one topic without talking about others because they're all intertwined. So I hope that you will look at the other videos on this channel so you can get the whole picture and learn how to establish your child's identity, how to show approval, how to connect with his heart so you have influence in their life, so you can direct their path for them. So I hope this is helpful. It opens up a lot of other topics, I know, but there are other topics that are important when we're learning to parent like God. But for this video, I just want to emphasize that our children's value and worth is not in their behavior, it's in their identity. So you can always show approval and communicate the value your child has in spite of their behavior, because their value lies in who they are, not in what they do. So thanks so much for watching. Until next time, take care and God bless.